Hello, everyone. How are you today? Did you enjoy the Melbourne Cup happened earlier today? Is it good? Hope you enjoy it if you have seen it. So I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. So we have about 1 minute to get started. So thanks for coming. Okay, let's start now. So thanks for coming. My name is Derek. I work with SUSE as a senior cloud technologist for the Asia Pacific region. So my role is to help our customer to build the right architecture to make the OpenStack successful to run in their organization. So today, my topic is about proactive monitoring for OpenStack. So before I get started, I just want to do a quick survey. How many of you are running the operation for OpenStack here? Please raise up your hand. Wow, quite a lot. Thank you. Thank you for coming. So if you are monitoring your OpenStack today, I hope that my presentation today will give you more insight on how we can build a better monitoring strategy for your operation. But if you are not ready yet, feel free to take also the information here as a reference so that you can, when you're ready, then you can get a go at here. So today, I'm going to divide my presentation into 3 parts. First, I will talk about why it's important to do monitoring for your OpenStack. And then I will talk about the key challenges that we would have when we are doing it. And so we also talk about the solutions that we would have available today. In the open source world, we have plenty of solutions. But how do we choose it? So in the talk, I will talk about how I derive my decision at there and run a demo for that. And followed by it, then I will talk about some tips on using the monitoring tools, how to make best of use of it to build a better monitoring strategy for your OpenStack environment. So let me talk about here first. So probably you want to understand why, people may ask, now I spent days, weeks, or even months of setting up, planning, deploying the OpenStack, so everything should be working fine, perfectly. So you try to move the workload into the cloud, and so you think the job is done. So what else do I need to care? So I think if you care about the success of your company, at the end of the day, it's not about the technology or the code that you build from your OpenStack. It's more about the tools, the process, and the people skill that you have to ensure your business is running successfully, depending on OpenStack to run their digital service for their customer. So it's very important to pay a high respect on the service level agreement that you would have to provide a stable service to run all the digital services for your business to run, so that you don't end up to have customer downtime or business disruption that will make your customer unhappy. Okay, if you're convinced on it's important to monitor your OpenStack, where should I start? If you look at inside the OpenStack, there are many, many moving parts here. There are many dependencies in between, and so the OpenStack platform, it needs to have all these individual components to work together well in order to provide you a stable, reliable components to run. So in that case, if you think about, okay, the OpenStack is just running on a couple of servers on that, so can I just use the typical server-based monitoring tools to monitor it? Would it do the job? So you may think about that. I also thought about that in that thinking process, and I found that there are really key challenges to do it with just traditional monitoring tools. So what are these? So the first is the technology that you need to cover. So in the OpenStack, from the full stack, there's a hardware, underlying hardware that you need to monitor, be it like the compute node, the server, the networking services, and also the OpenStack core API services. You need to make sure it's healthy as well. And also, you also have the OpenStack service dependency, like the MySQL, RabbitMQ. Those components, you cannot ignore them because they are also core parts of the OpenStack as well. How about the tenant side? So let's say the VM and even the latest technology like containers, you want to keep track of them, everything. So you want to have the monitoring tools to be able to cover all these technology stacks from one shot. So the ideal way is to make it extensible to cover as the new technology comes up. Another challenge that I found is that in the cloud environment, unlike the traditional IT environment, it is elastic. So the workload that you run at there can be auto-scale. It can scale out and in. So you don't want to confuse your monitoring tools by saying that, okay, when you try to scale out, you want to monitor the extra resources that you put in, like the servers. And when you scale back, scale in back, then you want to make sure the monitoring tools does not think about that retired resource is having a problem. It's actually a part of the scale in operation. So this would also require the monitoring tool to be so smart to keep track of that as well. And then thirdly, we also need to be multi-tenancy aware, because OpenStack can allow you to be able to do the multi-tenancy platform. So it means that you want to be able to keep track of the components to see if they have an impact on, the tenant. So you want to identify that, if there's a failing components in the OpenStack, which group of tenants would they be affected? So this part of it, you may want to keep track of that. Alternatively, you may think about, okay, you want to use the monitoring tools to identify the noisy neighbor in your tenants. So you want to identify which tenant may be causing troubles to the other tenants in the same OpenStack environment. So all this need to be tracked as well. And lastly, it's about the scalability. Because when you try to monitor the OpenStack, you may have hundreds or thousands of messages per second that will be incoming, feeding into your monitoring system for collecting it. And so the scalability of your OpenStack is a very important critical factor to be considered, given that you will keep constantly keeping track of a lot of data from your environment for analysis. So with all these challenges, I turn them into the critical requirements that we will have. The ideal solution should be extensible, scalable, and also it should be performance enough to do the job, to respond quickly when there's a failure. And also it should also be multi-tenant aware. And the best part, if it can be done, it should also be self-monitored so that it won't be fall apart when it needs to do its job, right? Okay, so with all these key requirements in mind, let's walk through about what do we have today in our today's open world solution. So there are many choices today here. We have some very popular one like Nagios. We also have some people thinking about using the ELK stack, ELK, ELK stack to do the monitoring as well. Some people think about using Salah Meter. Which one should I choose? So let's take a look one by one. So Nagios. a very typical leading open source tools to do the alert management for you, to monitor any IT system. So the benefits is that is very popular. It has a lot of plugins for you to monitor the system that you need. It's easy to set up the break fix strategy for you. But the downside is that using the Nagios, because it's only for tracking all the server metrics, it may give you only low-level metrics that you need to keep track of the OpenStack environment. The OpenStack environment may also have the other higher-level components that you need to keep track of, like Nova, its API, or the database, etc. And so it may not be the best fit alone when you are using just Nagios. And second thing is about the troubleshooting point of view. The Nagios only give you, some hints about certain components are down, give you a state when it's fall apart. It doesn't give you any further details about, what you need to do next. And so with this, I think that, if you just use Nagios alone to monitor the OpenStack, it may not be good enough to help you to do the job. Then you may think about, okay, then log is very important. And so we may think about, why not we also keep track of the logs? Yeah, that's a good idea. And indeed, from the log, in the OpenStack typical deployment, there are about 50 logs files from the OpenStack environment that you can collect. So you can centralize them. You can try to find out the information from there. Like maybe there are some authentication issue, maybe there are some messaging queue timeout issue. You can collect all this from there. And so there are some tools that can help you to do it. But because of the logs is generated at a very high speed from OpenStack when it goes into production, so you may expect that the injection of the log message will be pretty high. Sometimes it's hard to handle. And so there are some commercial tools like Splunk that can help you to take up all these logs from there. But in the open source world, we also have the Elk stack to help you to digest all these logs, to make sure you can also benefit from there, to see from the operational logs, what are the key insights from your environment. It can help you to do troubleshooting. But does it mean that using the Elk stack alone is good enough for monitoring the OpenStack? So some people think about Salah Meter. So Salah Meter it's been around, it's been developed in the community for a couple of years. So initially, it was designed for metering purpose. So it's really useful to help you to keep track of the resource usage and the notification from each individual components inside the OpenStack, which are very good. Some people even trick it to use it for auto-scaling by combining it to use with the Heat orchestration engine. So this is also a good way to do it. Some people may also think about adding alert notification with the AODH module from OpenStack, another module in the OpenStack tent. So they try to use the Salah Meter to do all the monitoring from there. But there are some reports finding that there are some limitations in using the monitoring tool. The biggest complaint that people always bring up is about the scalability. So the Salah Meter itself, by default, is not designed as a scalable monitoring solution. And that's why when people try to use it, try to query the system for the monitoring data that they need, they find it is slow. And that's why it may not be really a good fit for them to use as a monitoring tool. And also, it's also a administrative stuff, so it's a single tenant only. It does not have a capability to keep track of the multi-tenancy environment inside the OpenStack. And wouldn't it be great if we can combine all these functionalities, like alert management, like what Nagios has been doing, the log management, like Elk stack that we have been using, and also the resource tracking capability, making it more scalable and turn it into a proper monitoring solution. And so that's why in the community, we have the Monasca project here. So what is Monasca? Monasca is designed as a monitoring as a service for OpenStack and is built to be scalable using the microservice-based design architecture to make it highly performing, reliable, fault-tolerant, make sure it won't break down by itself very easily, even if it needs to digest a lot of data incoming to monitor your environment. And it's also multi-tenant aware, so each tenant can also log in and take a look at their own monitoring data inside their OpenStack environment. It also has a lot of plugins, which is also extensible to watch out different kinds of technologies, like your containers, your VM, your KVM using the libvirt plugin, and so on. The best part, I think, of it is about self-monitoring. As a monitoring tool, it gives you its own capability to see, is it also capable to take up the next monitoring data. And so with all this, we think that this is a good solution for the OpenStack monitoring too. But how does it work here? So basically, it has the horizon. The horizon is the dashboard for OpenStack. It has an administrative menu for you to keep track of the metrics, to define the alarm threshold that you need to have. And then you can store it in a database here in the database, in the MySQL. And then we also have the CLI to help you to do all this operation with the scripts as well. So it also has the Monasca agents that you can install into the things that you want to monitor. And all these agents will help you to collect the data, and they will send it through RESTful API to the Monasca API endpoints, and which will drop all the data into a very scalable messaging queue called Kafka. And from there, at the back, there are a couple of engines that will take care of the data collected in the messaging queue. So we have a persister to help you to persist all the data and store it into a time series database like InfluxDB. And then it also have the threshold engine to compare your metrics to see if it will reach above the threshold level and trigger the notification to do the actions. So maybe let's take a look at the demo here. So this is the dashboard of Horizon. Let me try to log in as administrator here. So now I log in as administrator, and then from here with Monasca installed, you can see the monitoring menu. And from there, you can see the overview. And at there, you can see all the OpenStack services are being monitored. The green one are in healthy state. The yellow one, it means there's some problem that we need to take care of. And also, it also monitors the underlying servers running the OpenStack here. So from this demo, you can see there's a component that requires our attention. We can click on it. And you will see from the dashboard here, what's the problem, which part got issue. You can see here what's the state. If I want to see the historical trend of this metric, I can just click a button to see it there, to see how it was behaved. And from there, I can also see the alarm history, to identify how frequent it is, to go above the threshold and see if this is the problem that you need to address with. So this is quite a handy way to take a quick look to help you to do troubleshooting. Notification, you can set up in the dashboard. You can set up the email, you can set up Slack, or you can even do the webhook to inject some programmatic script to integrate with the other system through the webhook mechanism. And so you can create a notification here. Here, you can also create a notification to another team if you need to do the page duty notification. And so if you go back to the overview, you can see 3 buttons there to give you more insights about your OpenStack environment. The first one is giving you the native Grafana display. So it shows up all individual OpenStack components state, is it up or down. It also gives you the overall CPU, memory, disk usage in your OpenStack environment. So it's all in one page, and which is also customizable. This is just a default out of the box experience. So you got a lot that you can customize from there. So if you go back, you can also see the Monasca itself. Is it all the individual components at there? Is it working properly? And also you can see the capacity of your Monasca. Is it capable enough to take care of your OpenStack environment? So the log management, you can also see from here. You can see all the log is centralized and visualized in here. So all the raw log are stored in this Elasticsearch system. So the elk stack here, you can do the categorization. You can filter it by using the host, tenants, message here, bring it as a column to let you easier to identify, if there's some message from the OpenStack environment that you need to be aware of. So you can do a search, and then you can do a quick troubleshooting at here. Very simple to do it. So let's do a quick demo about triggering an alert from the Monasca system. Hang on. So here, I try to check the Cinder component is working now. And then I try to use a command line to stop it. So you can see that within a few seconds, the Grafana at the back would be able to show you, the Cinder is down. Yeah. And so I will be able to receive the alert through the Slack or email that I have configured. So this is just a quick demo about the Monasca. At our booth in the marketplace, we have a live demo at there. So feel free after this presentation, go there and try it out. So having understand this is the kind of tools that we can use the Monasca, which is a proper tool for you to monitor your OpenStack environment. Let's take a look at what are the tips that we can have to make best use of these tools to monitor your OpenStack environment. So here are some suggestions. So one thing is that people think that having a tool, you can set up a lot of metrics to monitor your own environment, but this may not be a good thing, because when you try to over monitor the environment, it may give you sometimes unnecessary information to overload your operation team. So our suggestion here is to only start with selecting the metrics that will have impact on your service level agreement. So start from there, and then you gradually add the metrics to readjust it regularly. So you review your monitoring metrics, the threshold regularly to expand from there to make it effective. And also, because the Monasca has different notification mechanism, so from there you can configure for certain alerts when it's having a more severe impact. You can alert the operation team through the pager instead of doing email. And also you can use the alarm grouping feature in the Monasca to consolidate some of the alerts together and to send to the right team to help them to collaborate easier, make a quicker decision based on the information that you collect from the monitoring system. So another thing is about synthetic monitoring and anomaly detection. Let me go through here in detail. So synthetic monitoring, what is it? So synthetic monitoring is an end-to-end workflow that is commonly used by your customer use case. In this example, I use the case of the customer usually will launch a VM, and then you want to make sure you can verify it that it's usable by the tenant. So you want to script it, automate it, and make sure you want to keep it regularly running. So this will help you to identify issues before the user will notice it, because you keep doing that. And if it runs fail, then you can collect all the lessons learned from there, and you can compile the common issues that you usually will be encountering from there to help you next time, if the same problem occur, help you to speedily recover it. Another thing that we should do is about the event correlation. Monasca has a module that is working on that. Basically, is to reduce the number of alerts that will be sending to your operation team to keep them focused. And so in this example, we have a server actually is rebooting without letting the monitoring system know. But in a normal situation, it will say, okay, the server is down, and then minutes later, it will say the server is up again. So it would be better if we can correlate it to make it, okay, the VM is just rebooting, and so it's just notifying the operation team to do it. So in this way, the number of messages that will be sent out to the operation team will be much more focused, much more accurate, and succinct to help them to do the troubleshooting easier. Monasca is working on it. They have an events module that can help you to do all this aggregation and correlation. And also, if in the open source world, there are some also simple tools to help you to do it if you know how to do the scripting. I put a link of the open source project at there as well for your reference if you're interested to try it. So another thing that I think it is also very common is to understand the trend of the data usage. So that's why we need to have the anomaly detection. So basically is to set the baseline, and then you observe the trend as you deploy the workload at there. This will help you to derive a sensible threshold to set up your alert system, and also to help you to identify the problem easily, because if you can find out there are some abnormal activity at there, you can see is it just a seasonal stuff, or is it just a real problem that you need to address to. So Monasca has analytics, using the data science algorithm to try to help assisting you to identify the anomaly at there. But if you want to look at the alternative, there are some other research, and this is a very popular topic in the community that people want to find a way to automate this. So there are some other tools from the OpenStack module that we can make use of to help speed up to make the monitoring process much better. The first one is Filtrate, which can help you to identify the alarms, the events that you collected in the Monasca, and help you to derive the root cause of the problem. So there's some work being done on that. And the other part is Congress. So Congress is a very good tool that can help you to enforce the SLA policy. For example, if you have a VM that is required to attach to a public network, then you probably want that VM to associate with a security group, maybe for secured, so that you can protect the traffic unwanted traffic from getting into your own corporate environment. So all these two, when we put together, we will have the whole complete monitoring strategy. Basically, if this is the time, and then here's the healthy state of the system, you start from there. You try to put up with the Congress, some preventive policy to make sure all the operation will be complying with what you want the user to do. And then from time to time, you collect the data with Monasca, you do anomaly detection, you set up a reasonable threshold for each component, individual component that you want to monitor. When those components get above those thresholds, probably you will get your attention and you try to fix the problem before your customers should notice it. So in case there's a failure happened, then at least Monasca will keep an eye on it, notify you right away. So Congress can have also the failure policy to restore back the problem for you first to make sure the situation is restored back to what you expect it to be. And with the feature rate, if it's ready, then it can help you to accelerate the troubleshooting process by giving you the root cause analysis as well. Then we just fix the problem and then feedback all the lessons learned into the system and to make it, to try to make it not to happen again. So just try to wrap up. We have already identified the key challenges that we have in monitoring the OpenStack, and we also explore the options about what are the available tools that we should have, and we recommend Monasca, the upstream project, for you to monitor the OpenStack. And we also talk about a few best practices that you can use around the Monasca to build up your monitoring strategy. So I hope this talk is good for you. As Albert Einstein said, intellectuals solve problems and geniuses prevent them. So let's try to use the monitoring system to prevent any failure in our OpenStack environment. Thank you. So if you have any questions, feel free to move to our booth, and then we have a lot of expertise there to help you to answer. Thank you very much. Yeah.